Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys are doing well. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay. All right. This feed is breaking up a bit. So what I'll do, I'll let it run. How's everybody doing today? Everybody's doing well? So this is what I use as my immune booster for every day. You guys can't see inside of it. It's a hot cup of lemon, baking soda, turmeric, vinegar, and I have in here, I think that's basically it for this one. Um, I use it every morning, okay? Every morning I wake up, I drink a lot of water, and after that, I use this cup of tea. It's great. Tastes, tastes all right. Tastes very lemony. Um, you can add other things to it. Me, I have salsa leaves in the back, so I use the sup as well as I use moringa leaves, and I add it on top. And if I have chandelier bush, I'll use chandelier as well. You guys don't know what that is, but I will show you the plant, and maybe you guys will know the name for it from that. But I use that a tea like that every morning. I also put ginger in there and garlic. Okay, and this in and of itself is an immune booster, and not only is it an immune booster, but if you have any beginnings of cancer, or you have the beginnings of diabetes, or you have the beginnings of hypertension, this concoction, these ingredients, this tea, you know, pretty much stabilizes. Okay. See, the most important part of your body that needs to be addressed is your gut, your intestine. So once that's in order, everything else is in order because that's where all the food goes in. That's where all the waste, a lot of waste comes out from there. And so it's very important to take care of your body that way. Okay. So I'll be sipping on this tea while I'm talking to you guys. Always try to start your day with this. It's a cleanser. It's the first thing your body's going to have after a long fast in the night. Hopefully you're not eating in the night. Hopefully you're not up in the night. Hopefully you're sleeping in the night. So, topic. So we're talking about, and I put it in a poll as well to see what you guys would say in the poll. Who do you think would win if Floyd Mayweather was to face Andre Ward? Think about this. This is a discussion that really is something I wish I had ever seen in my lifetime. Andre Ward, I mean, hell of a fighter. Hell of a fighter. You know, great boxer. Great boxer. One of the all-time greats. A lot of people don't, when they talk about all-time greats, they don't mention Andre Ward in that equation, but he is definitely an all-time great. Not just Manny Pacquiao. We had a number of all-time greats in our time, in our era. Andre Ward's one of them. It's right up there with Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez, Shane Mosley, Oscar de la Hoya. He's an all-time great. Now, in addition to uh, Andre Ward versus Mayweather. We're also going to look at Triple G versus Marvin Haggler. And we're going to break it down, and we'll look to see, of course, we don't know certainly what would happen, but we would look to see, based on the way how these guys fight, a fighting style. Obviously, game plan would have a lot to do with who would win the fight. So it would depend on whose game plan implements their game plan. And that's a big thing that I think a lot of us overlook. But we're going to go into that as well. And then the other fight that I really want to talk about, is another fantasy fight, would be Andre Ward versus Roy Jones Jr. Now, Andre Ward idolizes Roy Jones Jr., so he didn't even want to talk about that. But I want to talk about that as well. So how would those fights play out? How would Andre Ward do against Floyd Mayweather and vice versa? How would Floyd Mayweather do against Andre Ward? Why did I mention Andre Ward, and why am I talking so much about Andre Ward? Well, I very recently, a couple of moments ago, watched Andre Ward versus Mikhail Kessler. And I came to the conclusion that Andre Ward, his style of fighting is very distinct. It's different to every other style of fighting out there. But essentially, Andre Ward is a fighter that actually more than likely will get to the inside of you. He looks for a way to get to the inside and infight you. Now, he has all-around game, but the thing he exploits the most is infighting. I can't define him as an infighter, but Andre Ward, essentially, a great portion of his fights come once he gets access to the inside of a fighter. It's game over. Now, Floyd Mayweather. What essentially is Floyd Mayweather's style and his game plan? Floyd Mayweather essentially seeks to fight boxers from the outside most of the time. He doesn't really mix it up so much on the inside. He has done it. He's good at it. We saw it against Ricky Hatton, Marcus Maidana. We saw it against Jose Luis Castillo, the first fight, mostly, not the second, first. We've seen it against Jesus Chavez. Okay, he can fight on the inside. But essentially, Floyd Mayweather spends most of his time either fighting you at mid-range or on the outside. He can fight on the inside. That leads to a very interesting situation. Why I say it's interesting is because Andre Ward likes fighting on the inside, even though that was a thing that initially Virgil Hunter, when he introduced it to Andre Ward, didn't think he needed it. But it became one of the most essential tools why Andre Ward would win fights. Floyd Mayweather, essentially most of his career, preferred to outbox you, to fight you on the outside. And the reason was he didn't want to get unnecessary punishment. He did not want to be, he wanted to preserve himself for a very long time in boxing. We all know range is a very important thing in boxing. Range dictates how much engagement. It dictates whether somebody gets knocked out or not. It dictates whether a person's defense can be effective or not, whether a person's offense can be effective or not. How can a fighter make a fight easy for himself and negate an all-out war of attrition or firefight? By dictating range. If you know the range that your opponent can fight at, and especially preferably the range he's most effective at, because sometimes a fighter can fight in multiple ranges, but he's most effective in a certain range. If you know that, then you can utilize the range which he's less effective in and have an advantage over him. Now, I essentially told you what Mayweather usually fights, the range he usually fights at. And I essentially told you the range that Andre Ward fights at. If this hypothetical match was to happen, it doesn't matter the weight range, right? We're talking pound for pound, really. Andre Ward would still be the bigger fighter. He's significantly taller than Mayweather. I think he's 6 feet tall. Mayweather's 5'8". He has a longer reach than Mayweather. So, essentially, if you're thinking game plan and strategy, I'm not saying it's beyond Mayweather to fight him on the outside, but just thinking about the strategy, the game plan, Mayweather, to avoid that range and reach, would have to either do one of two things. He'd either have to go in and out, a la like how Manny Pacquiao does, go in and out, pivoting around Andre Ward, or he would have to fight Andre Ward. And at some point in the fight, he would have to do that on the inside. Now, it's not beyond Mayweather to go in and out and box you and ambush you. But it's also not beyond Andre Ward, who could box very well and feint and use the jab. He uses the jab very effectively to keep Mayweather at base to some degree with his jab. Once he had a decent jab, and he has very decent jab, he has excellent jab. The other thing about Andre Ward I've learned is that he's very capable of going southpaw and fighting for an entire round to a couple of rounds in the southpaw stance. He's not bad at it. So at the end of the day, when I was looking at Andre Ward, we're thinking about offense, but we haven't talked about defense. Andre Ward will keep you occupied with the jab and feint you with the jab to make you hesitate to come to the inside. Of course, Mayweather would also be using his feints. The question would be, who would dictate to who? And this is a fight that is very intriguing and interesting to me, because Andre Ward is, like we call him, thinking fighter, and Mayweather is also a thinking fighter. And Andre Ward idolized Mayweather and borrowed things from him, whereas Mayweather didn't borrow anything from Andre Ward. Having said all of that, though, the intriguing part of this fight is Andre Ward is exceptionally good fighting on the inside. He will grapple you and hit you with his free arm. And therefore, Mayweather, which is a much more cleaner fighter, but he will grapple you also and hit you with his main arm, of course, is a lot sharper fighter than Andre Ward is. Andre Ward's more of a banger, and Mayweather is more of a precise sort of fighter. It would lead to a very intriguing fight in which there would be a number of adjustments made round by round. The question is, does the bigger good guy beat the smaller excellent guy? We all know Mayweather's excellent at what he does. And that's the intriguing part about this fight. It's not something you can just straight up say, well, Mayweather would beat Ward. Because Ward, even though he doesn't have as much skill as Mayweather does, it's all about the game plan. What would Ward's game plan be? Obviously, it would be to impose his weight and size on the smaller Mayweather. Mayweather's game plan has to involve negating Andre Ward's jab. Andre Ward uses the jab impeccably. He uses it a lot. It's a major part of his game. It's not a major part of Mayweather's game, but it's a major part of Andre Ward's game. And Mayweather would have to shoot the jab and pivot out the way of Andre Ward. Now, if Mayweather can get the jab in, the game is over. Because the thing about Mayweather is, once he can reach you with his jab, he knows he can reach you. And from there, the game is unfold. With Andre Ward, his game plan is not just to control you with the jab and reach you with the jab. and he uses the jab to the pit just like Mayweather does. But his game plan is, can I get to the inside of you? If I can get to the inside of you, this is game over. Okay? That's how Andre Ward fights. So when you really study the both guys and their styles, it's very intriguing to me. Because if Andre Ward can have Andre Ward fight, he has an advantage over Mayweather. Even though Mayweather will reply. Okay? We've seen it against Marcus Maidana, especially Marcus Maidana fight, because Marcus Maidana was especially physical with Floyd. He knew he couldn't match Floyd skill for skill, and when Floyd was starting to beat him, he got very rough with Floyd. He got very physical with Floyd, and Floyd responded because Floyd was very strong himself. And even though Floyd was not very physical with Marcus Maidana until about later on in the fight, where he decided, okay, fuck this, and he started landing some low blows on Marcus Maidana as well. And then when Marcus Maidana started to complain, he was like, shut the fuck up. Let's fight, okay? But Floyd and Andre Ward would be a totally different story, because Andre Ward actually knows how to maneuver himself on the inside. Quite subtly, he can do certain things to Floyd to kind of disrupt his hands and stuff on the inside. Now, because Andre Ward he can lock your hands up as he's landing his punches. So he's locking you up while he's punching you. So kind of like what Kell Brook did to Sean Porter. He doesn't lock you up permanent. He'll lock you up. He squeezes the arm, make sure your gloves hook up underneath his arm while he's landing a punch. He literally knows how to do that and leverage the punch at the same time. So he'll be trying to tie up Floyd on the inside and then work those body shots on the inside on him. Kind of like what Tyson Fury did to Deontay Wilder. He'll also be imposing his weight and size on the smaller Floyd. So he would try and put down his weight and bearing, bully him around and push him, roughhouse him, really rough him up as he could. Now, Floyd wouldn't take that shit, obviously. He's been outweighed by 19 pounds in fucking Marcus Maidana fight, and he doesn't take shit. Okay, Floyd will come back with stuff. So it would turn out to be a much more rougher fight on the inside for both guys. But Floyd could Floyd can mix it up and do the in and out thing, where he's feinting Andre Ward, keeping him slightly off balance and pivoting around him quite a lot. Now, Andre also can use the pivot, but he doesn't use the pivot like how Floyd uses the pivot. Andre pivots off of his jab. Floyd don't need to use a jab to pivot. And Floyd also uses another thing, and Floyd's pretty strong himself, right? Floyd uses another thing. The amazing thing I liked about Andre Ward versus Mikkel Kessler was Andre Ward was not the stronger guy in there. Mikkel Kessler was the stronger guy. But Mikkel Kessler was biting on every single fucking feint that Andre Ward was doing as the fight went on. And Andre had established his jab on Mikkel Kessler and took away Mikkel Kessler's jab by occupying Mikkel Kessler to misdirecting him and hitting him to the body, softening him up to the body. When he finally got to the inside of Kessler, he started trying to do that in round one, pushing back a little bit because Kessler was walking him down. Started pushing back Kessler. He realized, and so in round two, he just started blazing it and beating the shit out of Kessler. I mean, he fucked him up bad. And when I looked at that, I was saying to myself, because Kessler depended on his jab. You would not have that situation with Floyd. Floyd does not just depend on his jab. Okay, Floyd does a number of other things, like I try to explain to people. Canelo's another guy that doesn't depend on his jab. Andre Ward depends on his jab. So that's he's a fundamentally sound jabber. His left hand has been like his saving grace. He hook off the jab, he feint off the jab, he does everything off the jab. Floyd does not do everything off the jab. If Floyd don't want to use the jab, he just put the jab away and he starts to use feints, change levels. Now, Andre Ward also can change levels and dip on the punches. He's elusive. He can get on the punches. So it would be tricky watching those two fight. Now, people say that the fight wouldn't be exciting because Andre Ward, he's always wrestling people and he's always clinching. He's the clinch king. He's not the clinch king. He's an infighter. Like I said before, he will lock you up and you have to know how to slip out of those locks and land your own body punches. And Floyd, we saw him against Castillo. We saw him against Marcus Maidana infighting. And we saw him straight up fighting and brawling against DeMarcus Corley. And from that, and even with Zab Judah, walking down Zab Judah and fighting him on the inside, we see Floyd has inside game. All right. But he's not as active as Andre Ward is on the inside. He would have to take up his activity to match the activity of Andre Ward. However, because Floyd uses a certain kind of positioning, it would be kind of difficult for Andre Ward to find his spaces. Floyd bumps up to you with the shoulder. Like I always say, when you bump a guy with the shoulder, it's a little bit different. If Floyd gets under, he would get under Andre Ward. So Andre Ward is the taller fighter. Andre would have to change levels and get lower than Floyd. And guess what? Floyd got the lower center of gravity, so he would get under Andre Ward and bump him around and pivot around him. So Floyd can make it extremely, a lot more difficult for Andre Ward to work the inside like he would some other opponent who didn't understand and just keeping the two guard up and he could get to pivot around him and work his body. Floyd is not the same, okay? So that would be another tactical thing. I'm breaking it down. I'm really breaking it down for you guys to understand, you know, the defense of both guys. Now, saying that, like I said before, it's difficult to hit Andre Ward when he's dipping like that, okay? So Floyd would have to time him and all of that. But you would expect the game plan of Floyd Mayweather to be possibly an in and out most of the time. You know, you pivot around Andre Ward, try to get those angles, set traps. Whereas Andre Ward would be trying to get to the inside of Floyd, even though Floyd's a smaller guy. He would try to get to the inside of Floyd and he would try to rough him up because skill for skill, Floyd's ahead of Andre in terms of skill for skill. So to win a fight like that, you're going to have to rough up Floyd somewhat. You're still going to be boxing him smart, staying up behind the jab, feinting, and all that stuff, sort of using your defense. But you would also have to, with the smaller Floyd, you know, you have to also use your size on him. And Andre's a strong guy now. He's a really strong guy. And Floyd's a strong guy too. So Floyd would have to choose and pick and choose his inside exchanges with Andre Ward because they will fight on the inside. That will happen, okay? If Floyd fought Andre, you know Andre gonna find a way to get to the inside. And Floyd would have to find a way to limit that to some degree because he's a smaller guy. And so, you know, when you looked at Floyd versus Marcus Maidana, Floyd was able to establish distance, but he's going to have to fight Andre Ward on the inside. He's going to have to fight him on the inside, okay? There ain't no ifs or buts about it. Andre gonna get to the inside. So it would be an interesting fight based on how things would happen on the inside. And of course, if Floyd could execute his game plan and also pivot around Andre and get him with some different shots, you know, the in and out action. But it's not going to be that easy because Andre has a great jab. I mean, a great jab. And he could push Floyd back to the ropes off of that jab, especially the fact that Marcus Maidana had a great jab, okay? Powerful jab too. Andre could mix it up, and Andre could mix up the tempo, the pace, the power of the jab. He knows different kinds of jabs, and he also can use combinations off his jab. The right hand, left hand combination. He could go southpaw, start using his right hand as a touch jab. Usually, Andre Ward's jab with his right hand wasn't as powerful as the jab with his left hand. Okay, but he would use it to occupy his opponent. And he would try to do that with Floyd. The thing with Floyd is, so let me explain something to you guys about fighting that I've noticed. And it's just something I noticed. The guy with the lower ground, the shorter guy, if he uses the lower ground, that's going to be a big advantage for him. So if Floyd got low, and Floyd can get very low, if Floyd got very low to Andre Ward would have difficulty reaching him. Unless he also changed levels to the level that Floyd was coming at. And you saw Sergey Kovalev try to do that as well against Canelo. But Canelo, again, the problem with Canelo was he was setting traps for Sergey Kovalev as he's walking him down. And he got all the veteran moves. And Andre Ward got some veteran moves too, where you can catch your hand, you trap the hand, and then land his combination, you land his punch. But Floyd would be also kind of cognizant of that. He might catch him once or twice, but then after that, Floyd would probably get onto that and use. And, you know, Floyd always used the forearm, you know, and so on the inside, Floyd could create distance. Andre Ward could nullify that distance. Andre Berto tried to do the same thing by dipping under the arm and rolling, okay? Of course, rolling in and rolling out was going to be something that both fighters would be doing. And sniper stuff, where Floyd would sniper you and then roll out, okay? So it would be a very intriguing fight between two guys. It would be high-level chess, but it would be explosive at certain points in the fight because Andre Ward is a guy who really is quite explosive. But Floyd has got that fucking defense. That defense is the problem that Andre Ward would have to try and get himself past. But the way to get past defense would be to impose your size and strength in a smart manner on a guy with that kind of defense. You would have to impose your strength on him. You would have to impose your size on him. The problem with that is, and the only way I can explain that to you is by actually showing you. But when you have a lower center of gravity, right, and you know how to keep your defense tight, when Andre Ward comes in shooting a shot on Floyd, Floyd bumps him with the shoulder. If Floyd pivots as he bumps Andre Ward, he literally will turn Andre Ward. And that's a thing that, you know, Andre would have to be smart enough to know how to kind of come in on that, because Andre sometimes he shuffles in, and then if Floyd got his timing down packed, Floyd could actually lean in and bump him and could turn him with that. So there's a lot of you guys about that only I could show you, that you can see how this fight, it's very much going to be a chess match, but at the same time, don't expect Andre Ward to be so hesitant. When he sees an opening, he's going to go for it. Floyd, the same thing. And they're both ambush fighters, so it's a really impressive thing. Andre don't have the kind of skill Floyd has, okay? I said the kind of skill. I'm not saying he's not skilled. I'm not saying he's not doesn't have the same amount of skill as Floyd. He just has it in different areas. But what I'm saying is that it would be a very intriguing fight. Very intriguing, because both guys, Andre, especially Andre Ward, hasn't seen defeat, you know, since a long time in the amateurs, okay? And, you know, so, you know, that kind of mindset that Andre would have would be incredible, all right? He would find a way to win. The difference between him and Floyd is Floyd knows how to adjust really fast. So if Floyd, and he would be really studying Andre. Like, Floyd's the most observant guy in the world. He's studying every movement Andre's doing, and he's looking to use that back at Andre and shut him down in that area. Andre would be coming off the fundamentals. All right? Hold on a second. So when I think about that matchup, it's very intriguing to me, okay? Very intriguing to me. Obviously, you know, Andre is a great competitor. He would get a bit dirty with Floyd. He'd probably hit him a couple low blows as well, try and get him out of this game, because you got to be dirty with Floyd, okay? You got to be a little bit dirty with him. You know, every now and then, you know, grapple him under your arm, you know, suffocate him. You got to do different things. You're not going to get him out of his game. So what you have to do is you got to rough him up. You know, you may have to, you know, sometimes, you know, throw a punch and catch him with the elbow. I'm serious. He's going to have to rough him up, and he's going to be the bigger dude, so he'll have to impose himself. It's going to be hard because Floyd's strong, and Floyd knows he's got a really good balance. He's got really good balance. So, but you have to rough up Floyd. But I could see a way how Andre Ward could be extremely competitive and possibly beat Floyd. There's a possibility if he has the proper game plan. You have to have a hell of a game plan. But the problem with the game plan is when you're doing game plans, they change. So you may have to change up your game plan against Floyd, because once he gets used to what you're doing and he can read you. And the problem with Andre Ward is he throws too many jabs. Floyd don't throw a lot of jabs. Floyd's not predictable. You know, you don't know if he's going to jab you. You don't know if he's going to attack you. You don't know if he's just going to be on the back foot feinting and just moving away. You don't know. Floyd's not as predictable. We know he uses the check hook. We know that he uses the counter right, you know, the pull counter. We know that he uses, you know, sometimes a spear jab, sometimes a shotgun jab. Sometimes he uses a step jab. Sometimes he steps in with a feint. He feints you one way, go another, and then he hits you with a up jab. He do different things. Okay, Floyd is an extremely skilled guy. He do different things. So it's kind of a tricky situation, but the only way I see smart pressure, you got to try and overwhelm Floyd. Floyd also likes, and Andrew would have to be smart enough to understand this. Floyd likes you coming to him. He's a counterpuncher. Canelo likes you coming to him. All right? So, but if you got a good jab, you pop him with the jab. You gotta have but you can't be using the jab so much. Like Andrew Ward, he used the jab, you know, he feint. You can't do that. Floyd gonna read that. You gotta sometimes pop him with the jab just like that. Boom. Or you're jabbing, and out of rhythm, you pop him with the jab. You gotta catch him like that. Like he's gotta smile. You gotta get him like, okay. You know, you can, and also Andrew Ward, you can't be in a rhythm that can be read, and that kind of goes without saying in boxing. But Andrew Ward would have to try and kind of shift up his rhythm a little bit, you know, because you know, he's an ambush fighter, but there's certain things he doing there that Floyd would read. So you know, you can't let this guy. Floyd is a guy you can't slip up on him, right? He's looking for that opportunity to exploit whatever you do that you don't do correctly. So if you're not doing what you should do in there against him, you know, and thinking that you're gonna rush him and you're gonna, you know, overwhelm him, that's not happening, because he keeps his composure and he's watching everything you're doing, right? He's reading you. So, you know, his eyes always open. He pay attention to everything, right? So Floyd's a guy that, you know, that's the thing about Floyd that's a problem. Now, Andrew Bordeaux is well-schooled, very good fighter. If you could cut Floyd over the eye, you know, I'm serious. I'm not playing. Like, you know, cut him over his eye, trying to disrupt him. You're trying to disrupt him so he had to look to the ref and be looking at the ref like, you know, my eye, whatever. You want to distract him. You know, get him out of his game somehow. You know, and remember, because we saw the Marcos Maidana fight, you know, you may steal a round that way. You might get him for a round, but he's going to adjust to you. He's going to adapt to you. And then the next round, he's going to be coming at you with something. So you got to have something different every single round with a Mayweather, right? Floyd. But nonetheless, I think Andrew Ward is up to that task. I think that, and especially with the bigger, well, okay, Floyd fights a lot of bigger fighters. But my point is, you know, that you're the bigger guy. You got some size advantage on him. Use it, you know? And yes, I know a lot of fighters use their size on Floyd. I know, and he still beat their ass. But I'm just saying that you are much taller than him, okay? You got a longer reach than him. Use those things, and you probably would be bigger than him, right? If Andrew Ward, let's say they both fought at super welterweight, for example, right? I know Andrew Ward really fights, he's a super middleweight, but let's just say they both fought at super welterweight, okay? Or middleweight, for that matter, okay? Okay. Middleweight, super welterweight, whatever. Somehow Andrew Ward could have gotten to super welterweight, okay? We know that's not possible. He's a big dude. He was a super middleweight. That's what he was. But let's just say he could have done that. When you look at, he would have been a bigger guy. 6 foot tall. He'd probably come in super middleweight, 170 something, right? Because that's what he would come in. Floyd would come in probably 150, 151. So be outweighed by 26 pounds, something like that. But at the end of the day, Andrew will be the bigger dude. So the key to this is he would have to find a way to get on the inside of Floyd and then work his magic. All right? Floyd, I can see Floyd doing different things to keep him more at bay. But he would have to engage with Andrew Ward at some point against the ropes or in the center of the ring on the inside. That would have to happen. And that would be Andrew Ward's biggest opportunity. And he is a very good inside fighter. He's excellent. You know, from what I've seen in the pros, his display, he's very good at what he does on the inside. Floyd has demonstrated that he can handle himself on the inside. But against a guy like Andrew Ward, I would love to see if he could, with that big weight gap deficiency, right? If he could still maintain that, I mean, you're talking, okay, let's say 19 pounds. He's still 19 pounds heavier than Floyd, okay? So at the end of the day, whether it's 19 pounds or whether it's 26 pounds, he got that weight advantage on Floyd. They probably maybe they're both strong guys, but with that weight advantage, I mean, that favors Andre Ward. He may not be as skilled as Floyd, but if you can clamp him down, get him on the inside, and fight him, that's where his fight could be won. With Floyd, he want to mix it up. He don't always want to engage on the inside. They're going to come to a point where he got to infight Andre Ward. And so, what does he do then? But like I said before, if he takes the lower ground, if he gets that lower ground because he's got the lower center of gravity, it can make it harder for Andrew Ward. Andrew Ward's opportunity to beat him. And especially with his defense on point. Both the guys got good defense. Excellent defense. So the defense will be on point. But just imagine Floyd taking that lower ground under Andrew Ward. That's where that's where I see the difficulty. And I remember Pernell Whitaker fighting bigger guys too. And that's the same thing he would do, get under them on the inside. And then Floyd will bump you with that shoulder. So it's a very interesting, intriguing fight in which I want to hear from you guys who you think would win that fight, because the more I think about it, and then the nuances behind it, and just the skill that would be involved, that is not an easy fight for either guy. It isn't. Andrew Ward he's just an incredible fighter, man. And it's sad that he kind of goes under the radar in terms of all-time greats. But just watching video footage of him just recently, and just him fighting, and I was like, and seeing all the little nuances he's doing in there, just the way he places his feet and the way how he changes levels on his opponent. And so he's shooting from low to high. So his opponent, and blinding his opponent even, and every now and then shooting low to low, where he would just catch them with the body shot, or he'd come off the hook and throw a jab off the hook, and then come back with a hook on the opposite arm, or how he went southpaw to let the opponent have to look at a different look, and it just suddenly happened. I mean, it's just the skill that was involved in Andre Ward. As much as, a lot of people think that Floyd is a much better fighter than Andre. I think that given his qualities and his skill set and the game plan that he would implement, I think that he would be a problem for any fighter in any era, which leads me to talking about a guy from past eras, Roy Jones Jr., spectacular fighter, versus Andre Ward. A lot of people think that Roy Jones Jr. would destroy Andre Ward. I am of a different persuasion. And I think the explanation that I gave you of what Andre Ward likes to do would pretty much summarize why I think he would beat Roy Jones Jr. Roy obviously would fight him from a distance, from range. Roy had very blinding fast hand speed, but we all know speed is great, but timing is better. And I'm not saying that Roy didn't have incredible timing, he did. But the problem with that is Andre Ward, even though he could be dropped, but you gotta fight him on the inside. You gotta catch him with an uppercut on the inside when he's lapsing. He thinks he's dominating you. That's when you can catch him. But Andre Ward will not allow Roy Jones Jr. to fight at his preferred range. It's just not gonna happen. And Andre Ward, like I explained to you, he's going to look to find his way to the inside of Roy Jones Jr. And so Andre Ward would be looking for that opportunity. And he would use his jab in such a manner to have that opportunity presented to itself. And Roy would have to be a little bit more hesitant about how he would handle Roy. It wouldn't be the circus act that you usually see. He wouldn't just be blitzing Andre Ward. That's not happening. It's not happening. He would have superior hand speed. But then again, Amir Khan had superior hand speed to Danny Garcia and looked like he was beating Danny Garcia all around the place, right? Superior hand speed is cool, and foot speed, but timing. And I'm telling you, man, Andrew Ward would make Roy Jones Jr., because of his deficiency on the inside, his inside game is not that great, he would get him. Possibly stop him, because Andre was a beast on the inside. You guys got to go see his fights. He's a beast. Kessler's a bigger, stronger guy. Andre Ward was destroying him on the inside. Kessler keep him clinching up. And we all know Roy Jones Jr., that's what he do. On the inside, he don't fight on the inside. He clinch. That dude, Antonio Tarver showed us this. You back him up to the ropes and you beat his ass up, okay? And that's what Andre Ward would eventually do, okay? Because he has reasonable range, reasonable skill, good boxing pedigree, good boxing IQ, he gonna get under Roy Jones Jr. shots. Roy will come with the left hook coming up from below the ground, you know, what we call what Sugar Ray Robinson used to do, the looping hook. He would come with one of those, and it could trick Andrew Ward, could get him. It might get him once, but it ain't gonna get him again, you know. So I mean, but Roy was an incredible fighter. I could see how Andrew Ward wouldn't want to talk about him matching up with Roy. But like I said before, Roy, his defense was good, but his thing was counterpunching with lightning quick speed, getting you out of position and setting a trap for you and then counterpunching. And he was spectacular doing that. But he didn't look as spectacular when he's facing a legitimate guy who knew what to do to deal with it, okay? But he was lightning fast, lightning quick for his size. And so I could understand why a lot of people think that he would run rings around Andre Ward because he'd be faster than him. But would Andre Ward go for those traps? Would Andre Ward be concerned about that or be on his game plan? And we all know Andre Ward would be on his game plan. So the question would be, can Roy survive an inside battle with Andre Ward? That's the question. Now, a lot of people will say, well, first of all, it wouldn't happen because Roy would be, you know, dealing with Andre Ward from the outside. He's not going to try and make it an inside fight. But Andre Ward will get him to the ropes. Andre Ward will push Roy Jones Jr. back. How do you do that? Occupy him. Feint him. Set him up as if you're going to go do one thing and then you do another. You know, Joe Kazaki did that to Roy. He kept him pinned in place because he did as if he was going to do one thing. Roy reacted to that, and then he did another thing, right? It's all about deception. It's all about misdirection. Kazaki was quick himself, but Andre's quick himself. Not as quick as Roy. And just imagine Andre setting up as if he's going to do one thing. Roy reacts to it, and then Andre is able to get him the other way. Because it's a thinking man's sport, right? As much as Roy is trying to set up Andre is also trying to set up Roy. And I just think that Andre would eventually get to the inside of Roy, and then that would be game over. Because Roy don't have no inside game. He don't have no inside game, you know? Hold on a second, people. She's kind of like chicken. Interesting. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about Triple G versus Marvin Haggler. That's an interesting fight. Marvin Haggler is a legendary fighter. Legendary. And one of the questions we'd have is, how would he have fared against a bigger Triple G? Good question. Triple G would be the bigger fighter. We're talking today. I'm talking yesteryear. How many bigger fighters than himself Haggler had faced? Most of the guys he made a reputation off of came up from 154. Triple G can box a little bit. Got a decent jab. Marvin can switch hit. Marvin was a tough guy. Marvin had good skill, good timing. Like Triple G, he was both of them were kind of slow fighters. But they're tough. Both guys go to the body. Haggler would have that as an advantage over Triple G. Because Triple G goes for a body, but we know he didn't like body shots. But who does? Triple G have heavy hands. If Haggler don't ride those shots, he get a Kell Brook. He get a broken socket. But if Haggler closes the gap and goes to the inside, you can take some steam off of that power. And Haggler was a guy that walked into the dam. He closed that distance so he could land his body shots on the inside. But, as in the case of Thomas the Hitman Hearns, he can get caught coming into the inside. So, and Triple G has some unorthodox shots he lands on the top of the head of people. That really throws the equilibrium off. So it's a very interesting fight. Very. Skill-wise, Marvin Haggler's a guy that breaks you down. He doesn't knock you out with one punch. He's more of a workman. Triple G, similar kind of guy. I don't know. Triple G would be bigger than Marvin Haggler. He's not known to impose his weight on smaller guys. Triple G just boxes you. He's tough as nails. Never been dropped. Haggler's been dropped, not Triple G. He's very strong. Take a punch. But skill-wise, I think Haggler has more skill. Defense-wise, I think Haggler has the better defense. But even saying that, I don't know if Haggler would beat Triple G. Um, because Triple G would be so much bigger than Haggler. Haggler's not this big, tall guy. He's a small guy. Strong, you know. He doesn't have the greatest defense in the world. He blocks the guard and that kind of stuff. Dip, roll under, bob and weave. That's the kind of thing Haggler do. It would be an interesting fight because both guys can shift their stance. Haggler was a guy that he imposed his will and size on his opponents. In terms of Triple G, he's not going to be able to do that. Even though Canelo has pushed him back with his boxing, but maybe Marvin Hagler could do the same. But Canelo is a different breed to Marvin Hagler. Canelo don't bounce up and down and feint, and then throw a shot. Hagler has a kind of rhythm to him. He has a rhythm. So you can Triple G has no rhythm. If you notice, Triple G just kind of stands in front of you and he pops a shot. So that's another problem. Triple G don't bounce up and down and bob his head and do all of that. No. Just kind of sharp shoot you with the jab. So the question of whether Marvin Hagler would beat Triple G is actually a legitimate question. When you think of their styles, of course, it's always about game plan. Because you may have a certain style, but you have to adapt that style for the game plan needed to beat the opponent. So it'll be interesting. Marvin Hagler would be what today is a big welterweight. Triple G in Hagler's time would be called a light heavyweight. A small one, but one. So that would make that fight more interesting. You see what Triple G did to Kell Brook, a big, strong welterweight. So, I wouldn't off the top of my head just give Marvin Hagler that fight. When I consider the size, the strength, and the power of Triple G. Triple G was outboxed by Kell Brook. Kell Brook was landing a lot of stuff on him. And Kell Brook was a quality boxer, much better boxer than Triple G. And he stopped him. He broke his eye socket. Right? So, I don't know. I'm not looking at the aura of Marvin Hagler. I know he is a legend. He probably would tell you he could beat Triple G. But when you think about it, Haggler had defense, but he wasn't the most defensively sound guy out there. Sugar Ray Leonard proved that. Because Sugar Ray Leonard had the speed to let Haggler feel he was, make Haggler look old. Triple G don't have that speed. So there's a lot of things to factor in when you're thinking of a fight like that. Haggler was a hard worker. He worked hard. I'm talking about in fights, not just. He would relentlessly work. But would Triple G be too big, too strong? Haggler had to box Triple G. Could he do that? Or would it be that Marvin Hagler, a la Canelo, would actually push the bigger Triple G back? In spite of all the advantages that Triple G seemed to have in that fight. Who knows? Triple G would have faced no competition on the level like that. So it's a great question, It's a great question. Who would win? Some people would say, hands down, Triple G. Other people would say, hands down, Marvin Hagler. More people would say Marvin Hagler, I guess, than Triple G. But would that be a fight I would love to see? Hell yeah. This leads me to another one. Sugar Ray Robinson versus Benny Briscoe. How do you think that fight would go? Or Georgie Benton? That's a good fight. Both Georgie Benton and Benny Briscoe, they get to the inside, which means Sugar Ray Robinson would have to fight them on the inside. You have to ask yourself, we saw him against Ralph Tiger Jones. How would he fare on the inside? Now, he has fought certain fighters on the inside, but other fighters, he doesn't fight them on the inside. He fought them on the outside. How do you think he'd fare against Charlie Burley? Just good questions. How would Charlie Burley fare against Dick Tiger, Gene Fullman, Tvulmer, Jake LaMotta? Well, did he face Jake LaMotta? I think he faced Jake LaMotta and beat him. How would he fare against Ralph Tiger Jones? Who's to say? Carlos Monzon. Great fighter again. How do you think that Carlos Monzon would do against Sugar Ray Robinson? Monzon versus Robinson. They're from two different eras. different eras, but you know, it's an interesting question. You know, it's an interesting question, and all of these questions I'm just bringing to the table for you guys to think about. Not saying who will win or anything. I'm just kind of giving you some of the game plans, some of the strategy, some of the skills and styles that these fighters have. You know, Monzon versus Robinson, Monzon versus Haggler, Monzon versus Burley. You know, when you think about these fights and you look at the styles of the fighters and you look at what they do in the ring, and then you say, maybe what's a game plan that this fighter could win with? Because you have to configure a game plan, right? So this is the way how you can look at boxing. Boxing is a fun thing. It's a lot of fun. And one of the things fans sometimes they say, well, this guy will win because of this. You know. But it's really a question about all these all-time greats I'm just mentioning. And how would Andre Ward fare against those guys? How would Mayweather, Pacquiao, Marquez, De La Hoya, Mosley, Whitaker, you know, how would they fare against those guys? That's the question, right? So that's it for me. It took 1 hour and 2 minutes. I'm gonna catch you guys later on What You Need. You might see another video today, so look out for it. Deuces.